Where are we? Okay. So yeah, so we're setting up a 4000 by 3000 pixel image at 300 ppi. Doesn't matter. Our RGB is fine. Background content's white, whatever. So here I am. So next thing to do is get yourself a brush and draw like whatever image you want, smiley face. Well, you can check on that. I mean, it could be that you're not zoomed into to that. Like I'm currently only zoomed to 16.7%. Photoshop might bring it up at a different percentage zoom. You know, there's always a zoom factor, which is something that you have to look at. And you can always see the zoom factor at the top of your image window here, or if it's banked. If there's any question about how big your image is, you can also go down here to the bottom of your window, and you can click that down, and it shows you how large. 4000 by 3000 at 300 ppi. It also tells you what color space you're in. Okay, so you have your image. So what I'd ask you to do, we're going to first downsample. Yeah, so I'll go to the next slide here. Downsampling, or shrinking the image. This is probably very obvious stuff, but I just want to go through it. So to change the size of our image overall, we go up to Image, and in the menu, and then click on Image Size. And here we have our details once again. Now I'd like you to turn off Resample Image. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we resample, I'm sorry. We're not at downsampling yet. Let's go up here and turn off resample. And here's where you can see the relationship between width, height, and resolution. Right? If we turn off resampling, it's going to lock into place our pixel depth, because it knows. I mean, you know, it knows that we want to preserve the number of pixels. Ultimately, this is like our treasure. This is our treasure trove here. We don't necessarily want to just like forget pixels. So what you can do here is play around with the relationship here. Like try messing with the number of your resolution. So the same image, the same number of pixels, if I only have 100 pixels per inch, what does that do? Yeah, it increases the size, like the size in inches of the image. Does that make sense? Or if I increase the amount of pixels per inch, then it decreases the size. So there's like an inverse relationship between the resolution and the size of the image. And now, I think I said at the beginning of the semester, the width and height in inches, it only really matters when you start thinking about going to print. The only numbers that really matter when you're just making things for online usage or like digital usage are these numbers, just the pixels. When we start thinking about print, we have to start thinking about the size in inches and the resolution. Does everyone kind of get that relationship though? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can kind of adjust. You can do anything here. You can adjust the width and height. I can have 120 inches by 90 inches, but then my resolution goes down to only 33 pixels per inch. So whatever, you can mess around with that all day. So these things are connected. So now, getting to the downsampling idea, I'm opening up my image size, and now I'm back to my original numbers. And I'm gonna like click on the resample image. So now let's try something out. Let's try actually downsampling, decreasing the image to 400 pixels in width. And you'll see, because I've constrained the proportions of the image, it's going to like automatically adjust the height to be in proportion. And I could turn that off, and I could like stretch out the thing and like distort it in all kinds of ways. But for now, we'll just constrain the proportions, and I'm just going to say OK. And you can see how the image shrunk. So it's 1/10 the size. I've gone from 400 in a dimension to, 4,000 in a dimension to 400, and that's 1/10 the size. And you can still do all this stuff like, zoom and everything, obviously. But there I am, and that's the simple fact of downsampling, and we'll carry that into practice in a moment here. But I just want to warn you, it wasn't intuitive. I have to remind myself, it wasn't intuitive to me when I started using Photoshop, but here we are. We've actually decreased the number of pixels we have in our image, and you can always undo that. I've gone from 4,000 pixels on a side to 400. I've taken away like 90% of my information from the image. So when I zoom in again, yeah, you can see like it gets pretty pixelated pretty quick. Okay. And I can always undo that move, of course. I can undo image size, and I'm back to that big image. But let's pretend that I've I've downsampled my image, and I've saved it, and I've quit Photoshop, and then I reopen my image. I'm stuck with the image that's 400 pixels in width. So I might say, oh, well, no problem. I can just upsample again. And so let's bring it back up to 4,000, right? So what do I have now? I have like a blurry image. It doesn't recover the information that I've lost. Okay, there's just a point I want to get across. It's probably very fundamental, but I've increased it to the original amount of pixels that I had in my original image, but it lost all that information. So Photoshop's trying its best to connect the dots in a very literal way, but you end up with a much blurrier image. You've lost that information and you can't get it back. Does that make sense? Any questions here? Is this obvious stuff? Okay, kind of obvious, okay. Yes?
I was trying to make my image bigger, but
Okay, so yeah, so go to image size. Make sure that you have the resample image on, and go up into the pixel area to make it bigger. You can also, of course, make it bigger in this area, by changing the width and height and the resolution. You'll notice though, it'll want to just change. Well, yeah. If you go to the width or height and you increase the number, you can, everything will increase. If you change the resolution, yeah. So editing any of this stuff will edit the pixels, and you can edit any field if you have resample image set on. But I'm just going to cancel this. So what I did is I went from the 400 to the 4,000. Are you
okay.
Okay. So there we go. That's just the point. The only point I want to make here is upsampling. You can always enlarge your image, no problem, but just realize you're not getting anything for it. It's like the image is no better at 4,000 than it was at 400, since you've already like given away that pixel information. And I'll just say one other thing on the side. There's the difference between image size and canvas size here is kind of important, and if you haven't figured this out already, it'll be an issue at some point. Okay, say go into your image size and let's go back to 400 by 300 until we have the small image. Okay. When I go to canvas size, I can. It's a slightly different screen here, right? Already, so something's going to be different. So if I change the my metric here to pixels, I see my 400 by 300. If I increase my pixel count to 4,000 by 3,000, which was the size of my original image, and press OK, the smiley face stays the same size, but the parameters, or like the my editing region or my window, grows. So the canvas size obviously just increases my workspace without resampling the images that I've been working on. So image size actually resamples, increases the images themselves, and canvas size just changes the size of my kind of like working board, like my work table, more or less. Okay. Just wanted to get that down. So here we are. We have these homework assignments. They're at some size. We have a certain amount of pixels in height and in width. Oh yeah, and let's imagine. Let's pretend that we have these really nice 3,000 by 4,000 pixel files. Our dream selfies that we started on last week and finished for homework. We're not going to want them to remain, or to be sent out onto the web, uploaded to Facebook or Ello or whatever we're using these days at 3,000 by 4,000 pixels, and we can't send them off as PSD files because that's not a very recognized file type online. You can't just upload that and have anybody's web browser view it, and it's going to be huge. It's going to take forever to upload and download. So we're always going to be outputting our imagery into different file types. But I also want to make the point really clear right now. The PSD file is the center. It's our editing base. We don't want to corrupt that PSD file. We don't want to lose our pixel depth, our pixel information, and we don't want to lose the layers. But most of the time when we output, we're going to have to shrink the file in some way, flatten the file. We're going to have to lose a lot of our content in order, when we output it, to some other file type for the sake of either printing or uploading to the web or sharing with our friends. But we want to preserve all the data of our original. We'll be outputting, typical web output, our file types like JPEG or GIF/GIF, right? We've seen those files, those are the common ones. And typical output for print are TIFF files, PDF, EPS, etc. Yep.
That's good.
Okay, yeah, I'll check you back in. And also we can print from PSD, but we'll often be required to output. If you're sending your file to like a professional printer, you'll likely be required to output it to a different file type. In a way, it's creating like a stamp, or like it's creating like a snapshot of your PSD file. That's the way I like to think about it. So there we are. So output for the web, the JPEG file is the most common file type, and yeah, I mean, really great level of compression that you can customize. The pros of this format are that it has 8-bit color, a 16 million point 7 colors to choose from, and it has like really good compression. It's kind of made for photographic images, so you'll be outputting to JPEGs a lot. The major con here is that it's a lossy file type, which means that whenever you open and edit and save your JPEG file, there's a downgrade in quality. Because whenever you open the file, it has to kind of interpret the compression, and there's a breakdown when that happens. And then when you save it again, then it recompresses it, kind of re-encodes it, and it starts to get corrupted. Like, I used to edit JPEGs in Photoshop, save them as JPEGs, open it back up, edit, save it again. And if you work with a JPEG, over time, it's going to look awful. And I've had that experience. You want to be working your file in something that is not lossy. And in our cases, I think we should always be editing in PSD file type. But JPEGs are the best. I mean, just think about it as like you're just sending out snapshots of what you've been working on. So this stuff will be available. I mean, it's pretty. You're probably used to it already. This could be very fundamental stuff. So the GIF or the GIF, depending on your choice, I say GIF because of the peanut butter, I guess. Um, GIF is great for web graphics. You'll see it almost as frequently as JPEGs. More in the cases of imagery with like web graphics rather than photography. Images with like a few colors will usually be GIFs if they're not PNGs. But GIFs are great because they do indexed color, which we'll talk about in the upcoming weeks. The project after this one will be using indexed color. GIFs are really great. They have good compression, but they the main way that they create compression, at least for our purposes, are that they reduce the color palette. So GIFs also can offer transparency, so you can have like on a web page, on some like continuous web page wallpaper, you can have like your floating name, but actually like it's transparent around and within the the graphic that you want to show. So you can actually have some transparency in the image, which was like a great breakthrough in web design back in the day. It's pretty nice to have actually for web purposes. For other things, I don't know. And you also have the feature of like animated GIFs, which everyone loves because half the cat content on the web would be lost without the animated GIF support. The cons for GIFs are that it supports only 256 colors. It is 8-bit, but it has a more limited sort of color performance. And generally speaking, when you want like a high level of compression and you're working with photographic images or something with a lot of colors, it starts to look really bad when you compress and limit your color more and more. You get some ugly images with GIFs. It looks like Web 1.0. There's also PNGs, which were supposed to be like the end-all be-all file type, and they support like a ton of like a huge color space potentially. You can get like 32-bit color palettes in there, and they also support transparency, but they're not used as commonly. They don't natively support animation. I don't use PNGs. Does anyone use PNGs? Yes. Well, what do you use it for?
I think it's just going back to this. I'd rather save it as a PNG than a JPEG for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm gonna go back and just for me, I just like I've been using it for a while.
That's good. I mean, I never got into it. A lot of people got onto it at the right time. It is not lossy. It has potentially more colors than the JPEG. It's just not used as much. I mean, do you ever have trouble like viewing it in a web browser, for instance?
I haven't used that one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone supports it pretty much. Yeah, for your own personal, as long as you can open it. So PNG. I mean, look into it if you want. We have someone giving testimony to its value. It's a good file type. I haven't used it much, but I hear good things. So, yeah. So what I'd like to do is prepare to turn in our homework assignments. So let's all open up our dream selfies, if you would. I don't know where I put mine actually.
Do you want us to give you the file that with everything that we used, or use from the JPEG?
I'm just gonna take us. We're gonna do a JPEG, but we're gonna explore different save options. So open up the PSD version of the file, and in the end you'll just turn in the final image, not the. You don't have to turn in all the different files that you source from. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
You don't have to turn in all the files that you pull.
Just
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, just that final image. Okay. Class 4. Oh my goodness. What's wrong? Okay. So we have a number of options. First thing is I have this for me and for you. If not now, then definitely in your next assignment, you're going to be dealing with a pretty large image. Mine is currently 3,000 by 4,000. Bless you. And so right now I'm only viewing it at 12.5%. And I want to hand it in, but I don't want to hand in the gigantic file. You can see right now that yeah, I'm somewhere probably about 34 megabyte file. Or let's see how large my file is. My file is, oh, it's 221 megabytes. And that's a pretty big file for turning it into the server. We might do that in the future though. So I have several options for output. There's obviously the save as. First thing obviously I want to change the image size. So I'm just going to decrease it. If you're at 3,000 by 4,000, most of you are probably not, due to my extreme failure. Hello. Let's shrink it down to maybe 500 on the short side. Whichever side is less. If your width is less, make that 500. If your height is less, make that 500. You know, go to image size, turn on your sampling, and shrink it down. If your image is already on the short side 500 or less, don't worry about changing the file size. So there I have my file at 100%. Still looks pretty good, but when I want to zoom in, it gets very pixelated very fast. So now, the customary way that we save is save as. So I'm going to save as. I'm going to change the format to JPEG. Don't change it to JPEG 2000, although that's a great file format, but it's not as supported as just a regular JPEG. And I'm going to scroll to my Art Labs, Computer Arts, Digital Imaging Zagier, and then the Dropbox, wherever that will be. There we go. Oh, I don't know if it'll let you. If it doesn't let you actually click on the Dropbox, I don't know what it'll do for that. Just save it into that. Save it wherever you want for now, and then you can drag and drop into the Dropbox later. So I'm gonna name it Zagier selfie dot. It'll automatically add your file extension .jpg. So last name selfie .jpg. And then there'll be an additional dialog box that comes up, and it asks you to name what quality of image you want. Here you can choose the level of compression, and try scrolling around a little bit, and you'll see the extensive. I mean, for one, okay, we're starting with an image that was 200 megabytes. Now, I've of course reduced the resolution or the pixel depth of the image. The number of pixels in the image, I'll say. But still, even at 100% quality, we're still at a very reduced file size. And that'll be important. I mean, this isn't a web design class, but, you know, be considerate about what file sizes you're expecting people to download off the web and whatnot. 523 kilobytes is not wonderful. It's way better than 200 megabytes. But I'm going to go down to, I generally compress to about 8, when I'm uploading to the web. 181 kilobytes is not too much nowadays. it's hard to, what's the problem here? You can't see what it's going to do to the image, right? So I would say choose about 8 or 10. Actually, since you're just turning it into me on the server, you can do 12 if you want. There's also different formatting, different compression sort of metrics. There's
Does
Don't-
that use the quality at all if you were to like those set of separate formats?
It changes the image in ways that I don't really understand. I'll have to admit. I've never really got into that. Does anybody know and care to offer that info? I think it's different ways that the data is structured. But I've never had recourse to use them. I can look it up. I mean, I'm sorry to say, I don't know. The baseline as opposed to the standard is this. I don't know. We'll look it up. So I'm just gonna save. Another way to do this kind of thing, if you actually want to see how the compression affects your image, you can choose the Save for Web option under File. Why don't we all try that one if you haven't yet? Has anyone done this before? Save for Web. Who's done it? Okay, so let's all do this. Make sure your image is open and let's do Save for Web. Okay, so you have this great preview, and on the left is your preview. You can command plus or minus to zoom in and out, or down here at the bottom you can zoom in and out to see what it does to on the pixel level. And on the right side you have some presets and you have your different options. I'm first going to look at what a JPEG of this file will look like. I have the ability to change my compression level. I have a little slider here. You can see that when you go to like really low quality, the image will get really pixelated, artifact filled. And when you go to top quality, it's going to look really good. So you can even if like the difference that it makes in the image to assign different qualities of compression, even if it's not clear to you, you can actually compare the original file to your compressed file by going to the tab at the top and clicking on To Up. So you can see your original file on the left. If I was to save my downsampled PSD file as a PSD, it would be 1.27 megabytes. So that reduced it already a ton from 200 megabytes just to shrink the pixel depth, right? To shrink the number of pixels in the image. And if I compress it to a JPEG at 100% quality, it's going to be 483 kilobytes. And you can see the difference. I can zoom in. It'll zoom in both. They're pretty close to one another. I can't see too many differences. But as you reduce the quality on the JPEG, you'll start to see variations. Things will get, we'll go like greatly reduced. You'll start to see like sort of artifacts, like say in the shirt, in the green shirt, it starts to get a little more blurry. In the pine needles near the shoulder, in the hair, a lot of the kind of like subtle changes in color are going to start to get really awkward looking. So you'll definitely see it. So just be aware. But what you gain when you reduce the quality is you get a much smaller image. It's gone from 150 kilobytes to 41 kilobytes. So that's actually really good for download. That would be it's a third the size, less than a third the size of the image. So there's a lot of customization potential. Now you can even do like 4-up if you want. You could see 4 different versions of your image. So if we wanted to, we could see the image here. It automatically gives you different quality levels when you say for up. So I could say, I could for instance look at my JPEG at 100% quality, and then click another. I can click the box to affect the qualities or the the different attributes of that image. So I could like turn on progressive structuring compared to optimized, or as opposed to or if it's as opposed to optimized. So progressive, I guess, is a multipass encoding, which should make for a better image. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, these are like splitting hairs kind of choices. Main point is I usually just use the 2-up. I don't spend a lot of time dealing with this. Is anybody stuck or not here yet? Yes. Where are you at?
When I put in for Save the Web, it takes me to something that looks like this, but it's not the same format as how you have it.
Oh, that's curious.
Maybe I missed something. Was that just save it as a JPEG first? And
No.
then- no. See how it comes out.
Okay. So you'll understand in a minute. So we not only can save through this this method as a JPEG, we can also save as a GIF. So the GIF screen looks very different. I'm going to go back to just the optimized view. I'm going to go back to the right side here and click, instead of JPEG format, GIF format. Okay? And so everything kind of shifts, and now Ralph can see that he was seeing this color table. And there's other options that appear. See, the GIF seems like a very different kind of thought process here. And like I said before, the GIF compresses files it has this dithering effect, which I believe is like I used to know what dithering meant. It's kind of like a blending metric, but it has this indexed color. It can only do 256 colors at a time, and you can see already, I don't know if you can see on mine, but if you go to 2-up on yours and click on GIF, you should already be able to notice a kind of pixelation in the preview of your GIF. You're going to see some like weird colored pixels coming into play, and if you zoom in, you can see that there's these kind of like pixelated color separations. It can't show as many colors as the JPEG. And you can see that down here, where it shows the file size, the predicted file size is actually larger than the JPEG at 100% quality. So is everybody here yet? Or anybody not there? Okay. So anyway, we don't have to spend forever on this, but you can play around with the colors that you're using. This is an indexed color compression system. You can see that if I go into colors and reduce my total number of colors, it has these index colors showing up for me here. I can actually choose my own colors to be part of this index if I want to, and it has horrendous effects on a photographic image, as you can see for yourself. But for images with flat color, just let me know when the song's over. Yeah, for images with like flat color, for like graphic images, or for like for text, you can definitely like optimize those to be really teeny tiny and look really good as GIF files. So there we go. And and when you're done, when you're ready to save, down at the bottom is the save, and you can choose where the file is located. It'll automatically assign it to be the file type that you've chosen. And if people were designing web pages any longer through Photoshop, then maybe we would have a section on that. This is also really good when you're, back in the day when you used to design very graphic-based web pages. You could output like whole web pages. I mean, you still can. Maybe we'll go through it, but nowadays everything is designed with smartphones in mind, and the web is a lot less interesting place visually, in my opinion. So that's your save for web. Save for web. very powerful tool. You can see previews about how compression affects your images. So if you haven't done it yet, either do a save as or save for web save of your dream selfie. And before you close the file, make sure that you do not. And actually, I'll say I want to close the file now. I've outputted my dream selfie to a JPEG. So I still have my PSD file open here. I'm going to close. Oh, whoops! It's asking me if I want to save my changes. If I save now, I would be at this lower resolution, and I would be effed if I wanted to go back in and edit it at the high resolution original. So I don't want to save it. Either step backwards until you have all your pixels and save it or keep working on it, or just say don't save. Just close it without saving. This is where like you'll lose your resolution and you'll be screwed. You'll want to output like a version of it just to show me after class one day, and when you go back into it to work on it, you're stuck with 1/10 of your pixel depth or whatever. So just be very cautious, preserve the pixels.